Somebody made a joke that was like, all grand strategy video games are dressed up Excel spreadsheets with graphics. I'm like, some of us play them without the graphics.
Just give me the spreadsheet.
Right, just give me the spreadsheets, man. I'm fine with that.
Church in space.
Welcome, everybody, to Church in Space.
In 3D.
Hey, today's episode is what I am calling the new cinematic universe draft. Some people might be tired of cinematic universes, but this podcast is not.
We tire of nothing.
We're tired of some cinematic universes. DC. I was thinking about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe is becoming... There are still some good successes, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but it's becoming a little bit burdened by its own glorious purpose at this point. But it felt like the Thanos arc was a very coherent arc, and they've kind of lost the narrative, lost the coherency of the arc a little bit.
They're not quite sure where they're going. Kevin Feige has said we're going here, but the writers are like, it's not quite fitting.
It's not quite fitting, and it doesn't help that Jonathan Majors got in a whole bunch of very bad trouble, who was setting up to be their main bad guy. And, lots of things are kind of spinning beyond their control. Yeah. So the rules of this draft is that we each pick a sci-fi property that could be spun out into a whole cinematic/TV a la Star Wars universe.
Okay.
And we pick the TV and the main characters because, these Marvel worked because it had these foundational main characters that we dealt with. And then also, since this is a religion podcast, also we talk about what are the religious or theological themes in said cinematic universe.
All right.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're just do 1, 2, 3 for the draft. I will start to give everybody an example.
Okay.
So I'm going to start. Number one pick in the cinematic universe draft is fully expand and build more into the alien universe beyond just David or Ripley.
Okay.
Into full-scale alien cinematic universe, television shows, all that. Here's my logic. If you actually read the backstory to a lot of the aliens thing, it's actually a pretty complicated world, right? It interacts with the Blade Runner universe, according to all the backstory information, like they're in the same universe. It's set in this future where there's these 3 galactic human powers that are vying for control of space. The Weyland-Yutani Three Worlds Empire, the United Americas, the Union of Progressive Peoples. So you have a lot of room to explore, not just where's the alien, but this fuller picture of this galaxy that I think could be really interesting. The most recent movie did an interesting religious thing, which I would love for them to explore, would be this one guy, like the guy becomes captain, but it was very clear he was passed over at first for promotion because he was religious. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so exploring that world where going off to see the little like Puritan-esque colony that's a religious fanatics stronghold, but also has to obey company dictates, and still has to make company profit margins. Like that would be a fascinating storyline. And then our main characters, because aliens always best this way when it's all blue collar folks, right? So like Alien 1 is like truckers in space. Alien 2 is grunts in space. Alien 3 is prisoners in space. Right? It's got to be all blue collar jobs.
It makes it far more interesting.
Yes, makes it far more interesting. So that's my number one. I think it would be fascinating.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to go that way.
Okay. The concept of gray Jedi.
Yeah.
So, played through Jedi Survivor, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But the whole concept of a force wielder that has all this orthodoxy built into him, what does he really do afterwards? It's that whole concept throughout the universe, just how other force wielders work. Watching also through Rebels with Bendu, the one that's in the middle. He's not light side or dark side. He's that gray middle. Exploring that concept, it would be what I would do.
Yeah.
And that's my pick.
Yeah, like a Jedi, a force power cinematic universe would be. Yeah, I mean, you could do a lot of interesting theological themes there too. Yeah. Because on the one hand, I really like it. On the other hand, like there's some meme which was like the 3 like codes of the gray, the light side, and the dark side. But the gray side was literally like its code, hey, live.
Yes, but that's kind of the point.
I know, and it is. But it's like, but I want that like philosophy fleshed out a little bit. You know, like make it a little more than like I want a sandwich.
Yeah, but it's like the '60s counterculture movement of the Jedi.
Well, right, but even that would be a more fleshed, right? And that's what I'm saying. It has the potential to be more fleshed out.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. A really cool thing could be like a Rey light side, like almost like a tripolar force world. You know, where like you've got a Rey light side, you've got like Ahsoka student, you know, Gray Order, and you've got a rival Sith Order, and the three kind of interacting with each other. That would be a really cool.
Yeah, now I can just hear Ahsoka as part of the Gray Order going to the Sith and saying, "Man, don't harsh my force, dude."
Okay.
T-shirt.
Yes. Don't harsh my force, dude. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that pick. That's a solid pick. We're going to do 3 rounds. So.
Okay, so I'll start with Fritz Lang's Metropolis.
I have not. So what is I've not actually heard of this.
Oh man, it is the first sci-fi classic, silent movie from Germany. Fritz Lang was a German director originally. It's essentially his version of Chapek's RUR, the play that introduced robots to the world.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in the same way that they couldn't get the rights from Bram Stoker's estate for the first Dracula, so they produced Nosferatu.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of like that, except Lang really took it in his own direction. And so it's essentially about the first robot uprising.
Okay.
And it's very early. I mean, you're talking, 1920s. So it's a refreshing take on what that would be like. How robots are created, what they're created for, what they do. The backstory of Battlestar Galactica really owes itself to Metropolis. But in this case, we take it back to the 1920s and dealing with how would the 1920s mindset handle sentient mechanical beings.
Oh, that would be a fascinating, like retrofuturism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you could spin off a whole series of television shows about.
Yeah. That's why I like it. A lot of potential, and Hollywood has yet to tap into that.
Right. What are its religious themes?
Well, the religious things gets right down to, and think about in the States in the 20s and 30s, we had that heavy tent revivalism movement.
Oh, yeah.
So take that.
I love robots going to tent revival.
Yeah. So we get to the fundamentals of really, right? We talked about the AI stuff we've talked about here before. Do machines have souls? Do they not?
No.
And the very concept, but there then would be a sect of Christianity or Islam or
robot
Buddhism, whatever, that says, yes, they do. And so, there's a tent revival with robots. And imagine the robot preacher.
Altar calls for robots.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, this could be.
So it could get really, and especially placing it in the 1920s.
Yeah.
There's so much you could explore.
I could have fun with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like some other franchises, every now follow very serious story arcs, but every now and then it lends itself to having some just comedic episodes to lighten things up.
That's good.
Your pick again.
My pick again. So round 2, first round, or round 2, first pick. I'm going to go with Babylon 5. I feel like Babylon 5 needs its own cinematic universe. It was a good show. It was another show that was kind of slightly before its time. I feel like if it had been now where prestige TV with major budgets, it would have done better. It was also undercut by DS9 kind of intentionally.
Yes.
By Paramount and all that. That's okay. But, so it had its problems, but there's so much you could do, and doesn't have to be just on the station, right? Captains of starships and in the Babylon 5 universe and all that kind of.
Yeah, it wouldn't have the set restrictions at the time.
Right.
They had to keep it focused on things happening in the station.
Right. They had to keep it focused on the station, right? The station, you could still have the station. The station could be, this reoccurring thing, but something you came back to, not something we're always in. There's the religious theme between like that war in heaven, those super beings that are, at war. How does religion process? Because Star Trek never does this, right? Like Star Trek never, and like okay, the Q exists. Like, what does a religious person do with the existence
Of Qs,
of
who,
Q?
for all intents and purposes, are gods.
Right. Like, I want to be at the theological conference in Star Trek that like is debating, like, are the Q like gods or are they
Like the Squire of Gothos, are they spoiled, supremely powerful beings?
right? Like, where, like the implications of the definitions of divinity, by the fact that John Delancey exists. And so similar thing, right? You could do with what are the implications of that you've got this good and this bad, very clearly super beings. What are the implications for good and evil? And
Yeah, that's true. And Trek missed that opportunity many times. You have the Organians,
right,
the Archons with the whole Gorn thing.
the Gorgon.
The only time they really got into it was in Who Mourns for Adonais, when they come across Apollo.
Yeah, he's right. Apollo, about that's the only one, and it's one of the better episodes.
Yeah,
but
because they tried to tackle it.
And again, I get it because Star Trek is expressly, it avoids all mention of, or most mentions of religion anyway. And I get that, and that's fine. But there is a ground, I think, to explore. The main character in this show is the chaplain on a Babylon 5 destroyer, human destroyer, who keeps encountering these super beings in the War of Heaven, and like, how is he helping his crew process that information?
Yeah, and DS9, again, big missed opportunity because with the Bajorans, worshiping the beings in the wormhole. Mm-hmm. But they only dealt with it from a bureaucratic standpoint.
It's Star Trek, they have to.
Yeah. But, the Kais and their power plays and, and all, they never really got into the theology of it.
Right. And they kind of like, there was tension between like, okay, this human is the prophet. Yeah, I have a lot of theology questions about like, how would a congregation of worshipping Bajorans react to, you can just take a trip to the wormhole, and if you hit the warp generator the right way, you can go meet your gods.
Yeah.
Like, like, wait, what? It's that easy? Like, press this button, do this sequence of events, and I get to meet Jesus?
Right.
Like,
totally changes what the sacraments are.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Antimatter and a warp core.
Yeah.
Our Holy of Holies.
Our Holy of Holies.
All power to the engines.
Yeah.
Don't need to pop peyote to see the gods.
No, just, I don't need to do all this meditation stuff. Just, like, I have a lot of questions about, like, what are the implications of, belief, right, in the average worshiper?
It does. It fundamentally gets to Clark's whole position, and I'll paraphrase this because I never get it quite right. But basically, for every level of technology, there's another one suitably advanced as to be indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
And that gets to the heart of what you're saying. Where do you draw the line between just being a sentient being and being advanced enough to be considered a god?
Right. You're right.
And J. Michael Straczynski would be willing to do it too. He does not pull his punches when he writes scripts.
Right. You could do a lot. The chaplain struggling with faith after he meets I forget what they're called, but
was it the Forgons?
Yeah.
Forgons, something.
Yeah, something.
Futurama.
Okay, a Futurama cinematic universe. Okay,
yes.
that's a stealth pick in the second round. Okay.
Yes.
I salute you.
Yes.
I salute you.
Specifically, I mean, they mention the space pope all the time and how like the Vatican is at this like the center of everything. Like expand on that. Also expand on.
So we're not just concentrated on the group of.
Not at all.
Yeah,
and like just in the background of almost every single episode, you'll just see the Planet Express logo at least once.
Right.
You'll never see the crew, just the logo.
Yeah.
Just an Easter egg somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sold. Comedic gold.
Comedic gold.
It's a good pick. It's a solid pick. There's a lot of future development.
Yes.
Aha. Boom.
I don't have anything more to say about that. It's like, yep, there it is. Yeah. It is self-evident.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going with V, the series.
Like V for Vendetta?
No.
The alien thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's 80s, I think it was on. And another one where aliens arrive and they have puffy hair, but
yeah, as they always do.
Very, very 80s design.
Yeah.
I think it was an ABC show because the writing wasn't all that good.
Are you talking about the new one?
No, to the original.
Okay.
It had a ton of potential. I can see why the pitch won over the executives at ABC because it had a ton of potential. but it just stayed shallow in that 80s adventure show way.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that revisited. A lot of potential for depth where you have an occupying force coming to Earth
Yeah.
and how that is dealt with. And I want to distinguish it from, and I can't remember the series that Noah Wyle was in like 10 years ago, where there was an occupying force of aliens on Earth. It was a TBS.
It was a TBS, yeah, and Steven Spielberg was producing it.
Yeah.
And it was actually not a bad, I forget what it was called.
Yeah.
It's actually not a bad show.
But that one wasn't so much an occupation as a takeover and ravaging of the planet.
Right.
They had no intention of enslaving humans and keeping us going. It was just
it was
drain our resources
Drain
and
our
move on.
resources and we're moving on. And the resistance.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called, but you're right. That was a good show.
It was good. But V was about actual occupation of Earth. And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
They wanted humans around, but we were part of the resources of the planet to be exploited.
Right. So you meet all the characters are all the standard resistance characters.
Yeah.
You could focus different TV series or movie on each one.
Yeah.
Come together occasionally for big resistance plans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then again, the religious aspect, you get back into it's an occupying force. So do you start following whatever religion they have? Or
aliens never come with their own religion, rarely, do they?
well, and that's part of the issue, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. So in V, they would.
Right.
They're enough like us that they would.
Right. Yeah.
So we explore their religion and the humans that convert to it.
Right.
But at the same token, how human religion has this habit of growing amidst the oppressed.
Yeah.
Look at the early growth of Christianity. It's about being with the poor, the underdog, the oppressed.
Right.
And most religions seem to be that way. Most human religions seem to be that way.
Yep.
So that conflict then between the religion of the overlords and the religions of the humans.
Yep. I'm sold.
Not as fun as Futurama, but I can see it.
Yeah. All right. My third round, first pick. It's going to be reboot of the NBC show Kings as a science fiction show. It's a science fiction universe. All right. If you remember the NBC show Kings, this was like a 1.5 season show, which had a lot of promise, but they were stupid and they didn't tell people what they were doing. And they tried to get people to pick up on it. And it wasn't until the half season of season 2 that they actually told people what they were doing.
Yeah.
And by then everybody had tuned out.
It's like Ridley Scott with the aliens backstory, right? He knows all this stuff going on and he doesn't show it in the movies.
But the show was pretty explicitly, actually, it's amazing that people missed it, but people are dense. It was a pretty explicit retelling of the David and Goliath, the David narrative, the whole David narrative and Samuel, basically. And it started with Saul, and you kind of met David, at his battle with Goliath, and it kind of followed him. And just take that whole theory and transport it into a science fiction setting, and you get a great series of television shows. The Old Testament is like Game of Thrones, but better.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. It was one of the first big soap operas.
Right. It is one giant soap opera. I mean, you got politics, you got
lust.
You're right. Lust, greed, death, destruction, battles, just put it with spaceships. Make the cities planets, and then, and you've got
formula for success.
You've got a formula for success. I don't even think it would be all that hard.
And the best thing is,
ChatGPT could write it,
Yeah. The nice thing is the core storyline is public domain. You wouldn't have to negotiate for rights.
Exactly. You don't even have to negotiate for rights. Like, you're not going to Zondervan for asking for copyright permission, Yeah. Anyway, I just think it would be great.
That works.
And the religious themes are obvious, but I mean, I think, like in the show, it was interesting because the Samuel figure was, I think Idris Elba actually played the Samuel figure, but he played it as like a megachurch pastor, like a Rick Warren type who had big influence. And so it wouldn't be hard to kind of do a similar thing, right? And a megachurch pastor in this science fiction universe. And it makes a little bit more sense because like the Bible talks about the kings building cities, and like that never made much sense in kind of like a modern setting. We don't often build out of whole cloth cities anymore. But, I built this colony would be a perfectly rational thing for science fiction King Solomon, to come up with. And the best part is it goes on for a very long time. So you could have like 25 seasons. So it's built in to have like, it's built in.
It could rival Gunsmoke.
Right. It's built in. I mean, you're going
The Simpsons.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
They can have a really good draft over here. So between The Grey Jedi and Futurama, really good number 3 pick. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
A universe that
wouldn't even
screams for being explored.
Yeah.
Yep. The whole like worshiping the computer that has the answer but not the question.
Yeah.
Yep. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes. Another one which is just plainly self-evident.
Yep.
Yep.
Dang, I can't top that. That's just utter brilliance.
Yeah, I think Drew's winning this draft.
Yeah.
He's-
Yeah, very definitely.
Yeah.
Very definitely.
Great value at another
Great-
number.
great
that
value
and
at-
third round pick, by the way, because I completely forgot about
Right.
it.
No, it's great. I completely forgot about it too. Like, I was kind of brainstorming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's enough books that it wouldn't be that hard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Boy, yeah, wow. I've got other ideas, but they're all like third rate now in comparison.
Well,
They're
I
all-
mean, it's
they're
third round picks.
Does that one drop to the bottom of the...
Yeah, you don't have to pay him that much, so you have
Yeah.
growth potential there, but not like high expectations.
Right.
What you got, Dan?
Well, what I'm thinking of, there are two things. I'm thinking of Heinlein's Time Enough for Love. It'd be cool to follow Lazarus Long.
Remind me who Lazarus Long is.
He's basically the first human to functionally be immortal.
Oh, okay.
He's the product of the Howard Family Trust, which was established when this guy's wife or this family's son, somebody died really super young.
Uh-huh.
So they set up this trust to covertly encourage couples that had really good genes for longevity to marry.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a breeding program.
Right.
And so Lazarus is the first one to really gain true functional immortality through this process.
Okay.
Time Enough for Love is in the far future, and he's finally dying.
Okay.
And so people are gathered around his bed, his deathbed,
Uh-huh.
to encourage him to take, because by this point, medical science has progressed enough that they can keep you alive forever.
Right.
But he's refused to take any of those treatments. So it's all about them helping him recall these memories of his life so he can renew his passion for life and take these treatments and continue to live. But because his life encompasses this huge period of time,
Yeah, you could just...
you just have this whole sequence of
Right.
how it's basically exploring humanity's future through the eyes of this one person who lives through it all.
Right. Yeah, I'm sold. Okay.
So that's one. My lighter one was Lost in Space. I always felt that was a missed opportunity.
Yes, there's a lot you could do there.
Yeah. They're the vanguard. They
As a
become
kid,
the first humans.
I
people.
loved that 90s. That 90s movie was so bad, but I loved it as a kid.
Yeah. I got to admit, I liked it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew while I was watching it, it's like, okay, I can predict what's next.
Right,
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
awful, but I knew it. Like like I remember as a kid, the coolest part was the armor, the Joey.
Yes.
Right. I was like, that is so awesome.
Yeah. And since then, everybody's used it.
I know.
But the first time I saw it was in Lost in Space.
Right. That is probably actually the first time I saw something like that on television.
Yeah, but the
screen.
Netflix version reboot was it took it in an emo direction.
Yeah.
And it lost some of the adventure and the other depth that could be
Lost
there.
its lostness.
Boom.
Lost its whimsy. There's a whimsy to Lost in Space.
Yeah.
you
And
know.
it needed that. You know,
Yeah.
but I think if you went back to the original and then kept some of the whimsy, like with B9, with the robot and Will, but kept the tone that the first season of Lost in Space, the original, had, where it was kind of serious and it was about exploration.
Right.
And humans seeing new things for the first time.
Right.
That's the spirit that I would like to get. And then alien reactions, right? Here's this lost family. They can't tell these people where they're from, but what are the alien reactions
Yeah.
to Earthlings?
Yeah.
So-
that's good. That would be a fun cinematic universe to explore. Yes. All right. So honorable mentions. So first, we use this as an example. I did in order to both take it off the board because it should be the obvious pick. Also, just to give a good example, but Firefly and Shepherd Book.
Yeah.
The Shepherd Book Chronicles would be a great series of television shows. You could
The
just
Book of Shepherd.
the Book of Shepherd. Right. I mean, you could just continually do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Series of television shows, Boba Fett, Mandalorian style.
Right.
So what? Mel shows up halfway through the season, and then the rest of the story.
Yeah,
is about
right,
him.
right. The rest of the show is about him. I mean, everyone's, right. And you could do so many things from like the religious angle. Obviously, how does a super assassin become a priest? Like, is a obvious one, but could do a whole television arc on Mel in the Civil Wars.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
'Cause
even
we only get
exploring the
those-
Civil Wars themselves.
Right, the Civil Wars themselves. Right, what is Shepard doing during that same time that Mel is wandering around?
Oh, you'd have to cast that really carefully, though, because Fillion embodied Mel so well, And what, Ron Glass?
Yeah,
was
they
so
were both
perfect
very
as
good, right?
Shepard.
You'd have to do both. I'd almost do it as like young versions. You know,
Yeah.
it'd have
Yeah.
to be the younger versions of themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Because they'd have to embody
Right.
what those Firefly actors brought to those roles.
yes, absolutely. So anyway, that somebody's going to say that's the obvious one. You know, I think
Yeah,
one of your
yeah.
you get listed too, so one of your two would be honorable mentions.
Yeah.
you know,
Let's go with Lost in Space as the honorable mention.
yeah, Lost in Space as an honorable mention.
Yeah. The Covenant from Halo.
Yeah, I think like a Halo, they've tried it obviously with the
Yeah.
one television show, but
Yeah.
right, anything with the Covenant and the Halo universe is kind of on the list. of-
Yeah.
Covenant are one of the few races that are like expressly religious. Like the Klingons are kind of also they're at least ceremonial, if not religious. You know?
Yeah, because they know that Kahless is not a god, but they worship him.
Well, and even
nonetheless.
say they killed
Yeah.
their gods.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
remember Worf has a whole, we killed them.
Yeah.
You know, that's expressly their theology, which I think it's like, well, that brings a whole Nietzschean, like, you know, like that's fascinating. But there is like their whole culture revolves around at least religious ceremony, I guess
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
you know, and
The doctrine is just heavily ingrained into all the Klingons.
yeah, right. The doctrine is right, exactly. But like there aren't actually a lot of like expressly religious alien races like that. All right, well that was our draft. So thank you everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was good.
it was.
Yes. Are we going to do a post-draft analysis of each pick and give an overall grade?
I think yours is obviously an A for several
gosh, yeah.
stealth great pick
Yes.
and it's great picks at great value.
Yeah.
You know, Futurama in the second round and
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhikers
In the third round, I mean,
those are both
really-
A+ picks.
Yes,
Like,
I
you
really
know.
should have been a
Yes.
first-round pick.
It really should
but
have been.
I completely
And
forgot
and
about it.
And it fell due to bad analysis from the
Yes.
experts. And,
Yes.
and he's going to be on a tear.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame
yeah.
pick right
Hall
there.
of Fame pick
Yeah.
right there. I don't know. I give mine B. I think they require a good deal of funding.
Yeah.
you know, to pull off, but I think they're worth it if they fund correctly. So that would
See,
be-
I feel like Dan's gonna get a bad score initially, but when things like get fleshed out, he'll end up being like a B+ or an A- somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm going to end
Yeah.
up winning Emmys.
Yeah.
right. No, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
No, right. Because I think initially people are like, you know, what? What is
Yes.
that? You know,
like with Metropolis. Yeah.
Right.
Wait, what?
yeah.
That's true. I had to explain my first and second rounds.
Right,
Yeah.
you did, but they
Yeah.
were good when you explained it. Because
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah, so you'll get an initial D grade, and then in like a couple years they'll do the reanalysis and redraft and be like, oh,
Right, those were really
Yeah.
good picks.
Yes,
actually,
yes,
it's
yes.
kind of like how the Miami Heat are going to the finals with like all undrafted players plus Jimmy Butler.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. It's also kind of like the Florida Panthers,
Yes.
which is just ridiculous. The fact that the 17th best team is now playing for the cup.
Yep.
Is this your way of getting back at me for not knowing about Metropolis? So now you're talking sports, so I don't know what you're talking about?
No,
No.
no, we're not trying to get back at you.
Right.
We're just trying to ignore you.
It's okay. I do it myself.
Ignore yourself?
Oh, yeah, constantly.
If we were targeting you, we'd talk about baseball because baseball's the sport you need to watch. Because
Nah, hockey. He would enjoy baseball a lot, but I feel like getting him to play hockey
Yeah.
would be just so much fun.
it'll be fun for us to watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I better make sure my medical is all paid up.
Exactly, yeah.
And on that hockey-related note, this has been Church in Space.
In 3D!
See you all later.
Hey, Dan,
Yeah, true.
did you bring your stick and skates today?
I brought my stick and skates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which stick and which skates?
I'm ending this conversation right now.
Oh, but we were about to have our first beep on the
I
show.
know, right? Yeah, no.
Sensor struck before I could even say it.
Jeez.
This is not a free speech zone.
Drew will revisit this when we do our blue versions of Church in Space.
See ya, folks.